Tonight, as we reflect on the last sayings of Jesus, I have been assigned the first words spoken from the cross, which is found in Luke 23:34. Father, forgive them, for they do not know what they do. This is not just a statement, it is a revelation. It is the heart of Christ on full display in his most painful moment. Before the resurrection, before the victory, before the celebration of Easter, there was a word spoken over humanity, and that word was forgiveness. Jesus is hanging on the cross. He's wounded, he's beaten, he's mocked, and he is rejected. Everything about this moment would suggest anger. Everything about this moment would justify judgment. Yet, instead of condemning those around him, instead of condemning those that hurt him, Jesus spoke to the Father. He says, forgive them. Yeah. Let that settle for a minute. He didn't tell God to stop them. He didn't tell God to judge them. Although he could have. Instead of all of that, he says, forgive me. Let's break this down just a little bit and say it this way. Jesus says, Father. Even in the midst of his pain, he maintains his relationship. So in the midst of our pain and our situation and our circumstances, we should maintain our relationship.
Amen.
In the midst of it, not afterward, but in the midst of it, he even maintains his relationship. Then he goes on and says, forgive them, which tells us even in suffering, he extends grace. To the people that's hurting him. In the midst of it, he extends grace. Then it goes on and he says, for they do not know what they do. Even in injustice, he acknowledges their ignorance. Even in the midst of the injustice, he acknowledges their ignorance. The word forgive, which is the root to forgiveness, it comes from the Greek word aphemi. Aphemi here means to release, to let go.
Amen.
To cancel a debt. It is not ignoring the offense. It is not pretending that the pain did not happen.
That's right.
It is not excusing what is being done. It is choosing to release the offender from the weight of what they did.
Amen.
It's a choice.
That's right.
It's not saying, no, they didn't really hurt me, because they really did. It's not saying that you ain't getting on my last nerve, because you may be. But it's saying, I'm going to let it go. I'm going to step away. I'm going to step away. That is a difficult, there are different kinds of forgiveness. This is not an emotional forgiveness. It is an intentional forgiveness.
Yeah.
I have purpose in my heart. I'm doing it intentionally. I know I'm forgiving in spite of. It is not a convenient forgiveness. It is a costly forgiveness. Because forgiveness at its core always costs something. And what makes this so powerful of a timing that it happens is Jesus does not wait until the pain is over. He does not wait until the crowd apologizes. He does not wait until the soldiers understand what they have done.
Jesus.
He forgives in the middle of it.
Yes.
Which tells us we should forgive in the middle of it. In the middle of what's going on, we should choose to forgive. I like what some often say, Kizzy, they will say it's like drinking poison. but expecting the other person to die if we don't forgive. You're holding up your own blessings. You're holding up your own miracles. You're holding up your own healing. You're holding up your own deliverance if you choose not to forgive.
That's right.
On the cross, it cost Jesus everything. And that is what connects this moment to Easter or resurrection. Because the cross is where forgiveness is extended. But the resurrection is where forgiveness is confirmed. The cross
Jesus.
is where he extends forgiveness, but his resurrection is where it is actually confirmed. The empty tomb tells us that what Jesus spoke on the cross was not just words. It was accomplished. Forgiveness was not just offered. It was secured.
Amen.
Now here is where it becomes personal, because it is one thing to talk about forgiveness in theory. It is another thing to live it in reality. Because if we are honest, forgiveness is difficult. It is difficult when you have been hurt. It is difficult when you have been misunderstood. It is difficult when the wound is still fresh. Many times we delay forgiveness. We say, I'll forgive them when they apologize. I'll forgive them when I feel better. I'll forgive them when they make it right. What if God did that? As much as we offend him and we hurt him, what if God say, I'll forgive you when you apologize?
Oh.
And me? What if God says, I forgive you when I feel better?
Oh.
What if God says, I'll forgive you when you make it right? However, Jesus shows us something different. Forgiveness is not based on their response.
Yes.
It is based on your decision.
That's right.
Jesus decided on the cross, a decision to release, a decision to let go, a decision to extend grace in the face of pain.
Yes.
And that challenges each and every one of us.
Amen.
Unforgiveness is heavy. It weighs on your mind and on your heart. It affects how you see people and even how you see God if you don't forgive. But forgiveness frees you, and it is why it matters so much as we approach Resurrection Sunday. When Jesus said, Father, forgive them, he was not only speaking for that moment, he was setting a pattern for every believer that will come after him. Forgiveness does not mean that the hurt was acceptable. It does not mean that the situation was right. It does not mean that there were no consequences. Forgiveness is not easy. It is not natural, but forgiveness is necessary.
Yes.
Forgiveness means I release you from the debt you owe me. It means you refuse to carry what God never intended for you to hold on to.
Come on now.
And sometimes that is the hardest thing we would ever have to do. We must understand this. There is no resurrection without the cross. And there is no cross without forgiveness. Forgiveness is the bridge between suffering and salvation. It is the doorway to restoration. It is the foundation of our relationship with God. Because if Jesus had not said, Father, forgive them, there would be no hope for us today.
That's right.
Before there was an empty tomb, there was the decision of forgiving. Before there was victory, there was release. Before there was life, there was letting go. As a result, tonight, I have a few questions. Have you truly received the forgiveness that was spoken over your life? Is there someone you need to release? As we prepare our hearts for resurrection, may we not only celebrate forgiveness, may we live it and may we give it. Amen.
Amen.